Now we're to the installation portion of the winch tray. Now what we've done is, if you see here, we have the bolts loose. We don't have the inner sensors in place. The inner sensors get extension cables that we have here, and then the parking sensors go in the winch tray. The reason that is because the winch tray would cover them, and if we moved them out slightly, then we would also run into an issue of them picking up the winch tray. So we went ahead and moved the parking sensors to the front of the winch tray. So you'll use the electrical cables that we give here. These are going to extend it so that you can move the sensors out. You're going to find your same number 2 and 3 sensors as we marked them earlier with up and down. You'll install these into this clips just like we did prior on the bumper. And you'll put those in place with the extension cables. Now, this winch tray is going to fit right up against the rock hard 4x4 bumper. It's going to mount here on the top, and it's going to mount going down the face with these brackets. So you're going to use these bolts here on the brackets. These two are on the upper face, along with these washers here with the bolts. The sensor clips, just like we did in the front bumper, and then you will utilize now the extension cables. So let's go ahead and start on this installation. Now that we got our cables installed, we're going to go ahead and set the winch tray on the bumper and go ahead and install these upper bolts and leaving them loose. Now we're going to go ahead and bring the winch tray up in place and start the upper bolts that will hold it in place while we mount the lower brackets. You're going to use the 1/2-inch button heads that come with the kit. Utilize a 5/16 socket to tighten them, and go ahead and tighten them down on the top at this time. Now that we have the winch tray mounted on the top, we're going to go ahead and connect the electrical so we don't forget. The excess wiring can be pushed back in the bumper. Now we're going to go ahead and bring the outer bolts tight, bring the bumper back in place, and we'll go ahead and install the lower mounting brackets to the winch tray. Now that we've went ahead and held the bumper up in place with the outer mounting bolts, we're going to go ahead and remove the inner 2 on one side to install our bracket. So what I've done is I've actually done one bolt at a time, top or bottom first, it doesn't matter, but that allows the bumper spacers and the nut plate, which is on the back side of the frame, which are both free floating, not to fall out of place. Having a 12-inch extension on your ratchet makes this a little bit easier. Now that we went ahead and we have these bolts a little loose yet so we can move our brackets around and line them up, we're going to put a washer on the bolt. We're going to drop it down from the top. Now we're going to go ahead and install a washer and a nut on the bottom side. Now that we have all hardware installed, the 4 bolts on each side that go through the top of the winch tray into the brackets and the bolts that go onto the bumper, we're going to go ahead and first tighten up the bolts here on the bumper, and then we'll go ahead and snug up the 4 on the bottom of the winch tray. Once you've completed that portion of the process, next you can install your winch. Now we're going to go ahead and talk about how to remove the front grille so that we can relocate your camera and the squirter for the camera lens. You're going to go ahead and remove the plastic plugs that hold this plastic piece in place. You will be reinstalling these at the end of the installation, so try not to break them. Now that we've went ahead and removed that piece, we're going to go ahead and take the bolts here. These bolts here take a 10mm socket. Okay, we're going to remove those 4. We're going to go ahead and remove this clip right here that holds the camera wiring to the grill. Now we're going to go ahead and remove the grill. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and remove these clips here for the hose. And the electrical. To remove the electrical clip, you're going to push in on here. That undoes the camera. On this particular one here, because we're going to be extending this hose, we're going to go ahead and cut it right here at this connection joint. So what I'm going to do is just slice the hose off of the barb. And pull it off. Now go ahead and take the grill and set it down on the table for easy working. We're going to use a T25 Torx to remove the Torx headed screws that hold the camera into the grill. These are the pieces we're going to use. We'll leave this factory piece back in place. Now that we've went ahead and removed the camera electrical and the hose for the squirter, we're going to go ahead and reinstall the grill back in the vehicle. Okay. Now we will go ahead and reinstall the 4 metric bolts that take a 10mm head. Now we'll go ahead and reinstall the plastic up on top. Now we're going to go ahead and run the plumbing. So we're going to connect our hose in, the Rockhard 4x4 supplied hose, into your hose there, and then you're going to go ahead and connect the male style connector into the female style connector. Then you will go ahead and run these down here, right next to this hard metal piece, down, and then we'll run them out the bottom of the grill here. Now we're going to go ahead and leave our electrical right here in this location until we install the winch and go ahead and install our hoop mount. We've went ahead and set the winch here in place, installed the fairlead onto the front mounts, and went ahead and slid the T-nuts inside the winch. When we do that, we also run the cable or the rope through the opening of the fairlead. To do that, we release the clutch on the winch. That allows us to turn it to get a little extra slack. What we're going to do is we're going to take the cables, we're going to run them up underneath between the bottom of the body and the top of our bumper, and we're going to go ahead and run them up underneath, and we're going to come up right in this area here, and we're going to connect to the positive and negative side of your battery. Now we're going to go ahead and install the hoop on the front of this Bronco. This hoop is designed to have the camera mount in it also and take lights here across the top. Now to install it, we've went ahead and loosened the front bumper because we've done this in individual parts. If you do it all at once, you want to go ahead and put the winch tray on and the hoop before you fully tighten the bumper bolts to the front of the frame. So to get to this upper bolt, because when this bumper is tightened, this upper bolt gets tight here with the grill. We don't want to scratch the paint. So we've loosened the bolts, allowed the bumper to slip slightly forward, installed the hoop, and now we're going to go ahead and tighten down the bolts on each side using a 5/16 Allen. Now we're going to go ahead and tighten the bumper brackets at the bottom and at the winch tray and go ahead and snug this bumper up in place. Now that we've went ahead and installed the hoop onto our Rockhard 4x4 Ford Bronco front bumper winch tray, we're going to go ahead and talk about the camera. Now this is the camera we removed from the factory grill. You're going to go ahead and install the plug on the back side, which will connect to the actual camera itself, and make sure that you have the hose hooked up from where we spliced it up above. Now that we've went ahead and got all this ready, when you do the hose, we want to make sure that you leave this thing, this is like a pressure regulator, like a filter part of it, and it says ITW on it, and you want to make sure you leave that in the line. Now, we're going to go ahead and take the factory holder, put this back in place, like that. Now, there's a couple different plates that come in your hardware kit. This is if you don't have a camera and you do want to run the front hoop. Now this here piece goes on the back side of the camera in here like this. That holds the camera into the factory holder. Now this particular little piece here goes on the back side. Now we're installing the bolts going through with the front of the camera holder through the hoop and into that rear plate. We'll go ahead and install the lock nuts on the back side. Now we're going to go ahead and use some black zip ties and zip tie the electrical up and the hose out of the way. Now the excess wiring and hose is going to go underneath the grill here, and we'll go ahead and pull up here at the top to take the slack out of it.